we talked about this quite a bit of what's going on with the superhero genre, what's going on with DC. Um, you guys might remember back there was a really big push from Dwayne Johnson himself that Black Adam was successful. It wasn't. Did not make all the money back that it needed. But the Black Adam was successful. Now, in a recent interview on Kevin Hart's podcast, I guess.
Oh,
if it's not called Heart to Heart, then I don't know what he's doing.
I think it is. I think it's on Peacock, right?
I think so. But it's on Kevin Hart's podcast, and he says, I think he really kind of admits failure here. He says, we were bogged down with COVID stuff, which is understandable. We were bogged down with, kind of the studio taking a new direction. And what he reiterates on a lot in the, what he reiterates on a lot in the, his statement, I guess, is new leadership. There was new leadership. There were things changing. There was new leadership. There were things changing. And what he's talking about, obviously, is the DC reboot, James Gunn coming in and starting a new DC universe.
Right.
So
okay.
let's. I'll read real quick what he says in the interview. I know you have that article pulled up. We don't have to see the article necessarily. But if you want to read it,
do you have
it pulled up?
No, I have something for Dune and I have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but I do.
You
have
know what?
something.
My mistake.
No, check this out. Is this the interview?
It is. Yes. Yeah. Right. I think so.
Let's just play it and let's see what.
Yeah.
All right. Tell me if you can hear this. Give me a thumbs up.
Black Adam, big opening, huge. Yeah. By the way, the thing that's crazy about it being so fucking big, your fan base is engaged. Everybody's engaged.
Whoa. Spoiler. Hide your kids, hide your wife, I guess. they're in this.
Watchers, viewer description advised. There is some swearing in this. It's
cursing beware. Cursing beware.
Yeah.
And it is called Heart to Heart, by the way. I don't know if you pulled that out your butt, but that's exactly
I love that.
He knows how to run a show.
He knows how to market, yeah.
All right.
You make an announcement, and your announcement is talking about, hey, we're not going to continue the world of Black Adam, right? Yeah. For me, I'm curious. I want to know why, especially when there's such a successful opening. You seem to have the appetite from your fan base for more. What's the reason or the reasons for the stopping of Black Adam?
I think that Black Adam
He's treading lightly.
got caught in a vortex of new leadership.
He's not wrong.
And at that time, as we were creating Black Adam, developing it, shooting Black Adam, we got knocked down a little bit because of COVID and the shutdowns, got back up.
Also not wrong.
There was so many changes in leadership. And as you know, anytime you have a company, but especially that size and magnitude, that's a publicly traded company, and you have all those changes in leadership, you have people coming in who creatively, fiscally are going to make decisions that you may not agree with philosophically. So I think Black Adam was one of those movies that got caught in that web of new leadership. And, that will always be one of the biggest mysteries, I think, not only for me and us on our end, but also throughout our business, because that's a Kevin question. But that was a question out of Wall Street. That was a question out of Hollywood. That was a question like, wait a second. You had the biggest opening of your career. Sure, no China. That could have been maybe 100, maybe 200 more million dollars. You're establishing a new superhero. You want to grow out the franchise. You bring back Superman and Henry Cavill. The world went crazy. And also, too, and you were texting me this on opening weekend, is we created a diverse superhero portfolio where we had just men and women of color, in Black Adam too as well. So I
think I was more.
It wasn't super diverse. It was mostly kind of racially ambiguous people in a made-up country.
Right. And he brought up Henry Cavill as Superman.
Now, people love Cavill as Superman. People 100%. Really do love him. And I think that was really kind of the grounding point for a lot of people of like, oh man, it would be the movie maybe not is super great, but this character, Black Adam, who's kind of anti-hero-ish, with or versus Henry Cavill's Superman, is super interesting, and we would like to see that. But he's right. Leadership has changed. I don't think it's 100% the leadership changing that made this movie fail.
Right.
We have to recognize that the movie itself wasn't good. The dialogue wasn't good.
Now,
a lot of the
along with
CG
that,
wasn't good.
Do you think he could, because he doesn't want to come out and say it just ended up not being good. When he says leadership changes, do you think underneath that he means like rewrites and
Yes,
and,
I
and
think
pushing things
perhaps he
along
does.
too quickly than it needed to be?
I think perhaps he does, but you know, we have to look at this for what it is. Ethan, did you watch Black Adam? No, understandable. I didn't watch it till very recently, and it's not. Let me make sure my phone's turned down. It's not super great. It really kind of meanders a bit, and then has a weird villain at the end. Pierce Brosnan is in there, and I like Pierce. It's kind of a strange movie. But now, I think with James Gunn coming in and James Gunn changing the universe, maybe that was happening during when they made this movie.
Perhaps.
But from what I know, that didn't happen until later. So he says leadership changing a whole bunch of times in this interview, but maybe that was starting to happen during this time with Black Adam, but I'm going to be honest, I don't think that happened until later.
All right. There's 2 minutes left on this. I'm curious to see what else he has to say. Can we watch this?
Yeah, play it.
Let's see what he has to say, because he's not explaining necessarily why Adam's not continuing. So let's see what he says about that.
I was impressed by the execution.
Yeah.
I know how Black Adam, how close the movie was, the project, and that was one that was near and dear to your heart. And cracking the code, it seemed that cracking the code on the world of superhero is something, of course, that you were very ambitious about doing. And what I thought you did, I was like, oh, that's dope as fuck.
Nah, he did.
He put his mind to it, and he did it. Like,
no,
the shit's happening. They're in production. They're shooting the movie. Fuck, it's done.
They made the movie.
Release the trailer. Shit look good. DJ, congrats. Fuck.
It was a cool slow motion scene, I will say.
Then release the movie. Movie has success behind it. You get some positive dollars in the goddamn box office behind it in a time where the box office seemed to be taking hits, dips. So I don't know. It was a weird thing for me, and just not knowing. But to hear you say that, it makes sense. You know, when there's a changing of the guard, sometimes the business changes as well, and rightfully so, right? Like, we can't be a part of the world of why on that side, but and giving them the best opportunity to make more and do more, that's our job. That's where we come in.
Exactly.
Look,
and I think it is as
I'm probably going to reiterate this a ton of times.
Right. Go ahead, Foy.
Look, we all know that the change in leadership wasn't known just across the board, especially when they were putting out this movie, when they were making this movie.
Right.
Because Henry Cavill was like, I'm back as Superman. And then James Gunn's like, no, he's not. And he's like, I guess I'm not back as Superman. That happened way after the release of this movie, after he had come back in a post-credit scene in this movie. So I don't want to say that they're just blaming the new change in leadership, but it feels kind of like that to me. Now, Kevin Hart is saying that it was successful. He's saying, it was interesting. He's wrong. Kevin Hart hasn't had a successful movie in years, over a decade.
Right.
No, not over a decade. He had one good, serious movie on Netflix that came out a while ago.
Well, he also did a show that was incredibly good, but it didn't get a lot of traction, about kind of like a fictionalized, but he's playing himself story, right?
Yeah. I just think it's they're
also
making
points out
they're making stuff up because they're actors.
he also points out the fact that he says something's true. He
Mm.
says that we can't necessarily say why something is or isn't happening. Again, all that's not for us to decide. All we can decide is like
Yeah,
give the franchise the best opportunity to continue. And that's very true from the standpoint of an actor. However,
absolutely.
However, sometimes the actor can be the biggest drain on an idea. You are the one on camera. And I'm not saying that Dwayne didn't do a good job as Black Adam or like give it a good go. But
he did his best. He really, and I applaud him for this. He really tried hard to promote the movie, make people want to go see it. He marketed it on his energy drink. He did a lot.
right.
And that's good. That's a good thing to do. And he really wanted people to watch it and see it and have a good time. And I applaud any actor who does that for their movies. But Ethan, have you seen the new Guardians of the Galaxy movie?
Probably not.
Okay.
Just started streaming.
You've seen the two previous Guardians of the Galaxy, both directed by James Gunn.
Yeah.
And you know that he's taking over the DC universe, right?
Now I do, yes.
Okay.
So he's taking now you do. He's taking over he's going to be rebooting the DC universe. So I think there's some other slides. There's James Gunn. Gosh, he looks like a hack. And you're right. I know we've talked about this in previous podcasts, Joe, but you said directors need a look. He's found his look. It just looks like a Mythbuster.
He does look like a Mythbuster, but because there's literally a Mythbuster that looks just like him.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's his look. It's like
his look. Whatever.
And the thing is, sometimes your look is chosen for you. Just to go.
No,
on
he
this
chose
real
that
quickly.
look.
No, because sometimes a certain person's hair texture, head shape.
Okay.
Do you need glasses?
I
agree. Do you have good vision? You know what I mean?
His head does look
Skin
like it
tone,
tapers. My head tapers as well.
Yeah, all of these things
I understand.
Are out of your control, and you have to create the look with what you've been given. And usually people have 1 to 3 looks they would be okay with, and they have to make a choice on one of those, right?
I want everybody to recognize, you see my head tapers.
right.
Ethan's head does not taper.
Nope.
Yeah, Ethan in my head looks
right.
solid.
I've got it, and I can see Gunn's head tapers like mine.
Yeah,
so he needs a little bit of volume out
on the side.
But that's not what we're talking about. The next slide really kind of, I think, sums up this top section here. Is the last movies of the previous Marvel or DCEU.
Okay, so let's call them out. We got Shazam. That was a flop.
That was a flop. Flash, flop. Blue Beetle is going to be a flop. Yep. And Aquaman, I predict, is going to be a flop.
I think Aquaman's going to give us some of the best memes ever. With Amber Heard probably like dying off early in the film because of her toxicity.
Mm-hmm.
Ethan, you at least know about Amber Heard, don't you?
Oh my gosh, don't
and like the depths that she went through to ruin a man's career.
I know.
You got to understand. There's layers here.
That's such a stupid joke.
Dude, Johnny Depp and Oceans because she's a mermaid. Dude,
okay.
That was a beautiful joke.
That's a really good.
Let's snapshot that one right there.
Right.
No, ignoring that, these are all flops.
Yeah.
Right? This is the previous generation. Now, James Gunn has said that Blue Beetle is kind of going to kick off the new, and that's what this
he probably has to say that.
That's what this second tier is. I think he's doing a pity thing here.
Yeah.
I don't think he's playing Blue Beetle into his
He also doesn't want the studio to not make any money at the beginning of his legacy.
His tenure.
Right, his tenure.
But I mean, he's got just some wild. Nobody cares about Creature Commandos. Nobody cares about Waller. I'm sorry, nobody does. The
Lanterns
things
is interesting.
Lantern, people like Green Lantern. Here's the Authority, Swamp Thing, Supergirl, Booster Gold, Paradise Lost. Nobody cares. Here's what people care about in DC: Superman,
Mm-hmm.
Batman,
Right.
Wonder Woman, the Justice League. The
That's it.
main look, people
Wonder
can
Woman's
get
not on here.
no. People can get invested in the other Justice League members as time goes on. But if you're not opening up with Batman,
Or
The
Superman.
Brave and the Bold is an interesting one because a lot of kids have fond memories of the TV show Batman the Brave and the Bold.
Mm-hmm.
Superman, though, that's the leading character for DC, and replacing Henry Cavill is an interesting move. Especially, we've seen the actor who's replacing him. He's less good Henry Cavill. Then, of course, we have here at the bottom our, I guess, what we're
Otherverse?
calling Elseworld.
Elseworld.
Joker, Batman, the
Joker
next
2.
Joker with, what's her face?
Another Batman 2.
Another Batman. Teen Titans and Lois. Superman and Lois doesn't count.
Okay.
Those are sort of Elseworld stories.
Apparently,
Ethan,
apparently everything up to this point, I guess, besides Blue Beetle, is going to be considered Elseworld as well, right?
yeah, Ethan, we're looking at a big roster here in the middle. As a casual, okay, as a normie who doesn't really watch these stuff unless it comes out on streaming nowadays, what would you want to watch from this listing?
The first thing I would want to watch is Batman the Brave and the Bold.
Batman the Brave and the Bold.
That's it.
Right.
I mean, because growing up, we were always watching, the Batman, the cartoon Batman, especially. And when we were introducing William to TV shows, it was the cartoon classic Batman. And that framed a lot of
the animated series.
William's first few years where he was thinking Batman.
And
it was definitely the same with us.
Granted, he
too.
was thinking Joker. William.
Yeah, William did like the Joker.
For some reason, likes bad guys. That says a lot about his character.
I love bad guy. I loved bad guys when I was a kid. They were my favorite.
But you don't know any of these other things, do you? You don't
know
what Booster Gold is.
No, I don't know. The only things I know are Green Lantern, Superman, Supergirl, even though I hate that, Batman the Brave and the Bold. I recognize Paradise Lost, but not very much.
Okay.
And Blue Beetle, I recognize that.
Okay.
Teen Titans, of course, I recognize that. And stuff.
Right.
So
it's interesting, that normies don't recognize any of these. Now, I don't think a lot of normies recognize what was going on with Marvel, but I think people, even at the beginning, knew, I've heard of the Avengers.
Right. Well, sort of.
Right?
Sort of.
Well, the Avengers...
Iron Man, people kind of knew who these characters were. Thor, people kind of knew who these characters were.
You got to, you got to understand most of everything they did, especially in, the main Avengers, Infinity War was in the comics. So I was working at a lumberyard at that time, and the hype for everyone there who was,
comic enthusiasts,
18, literally 18 to 55. It was Avengers Infinity War, because they had almost everyone at the lumberyard had all read the comics, and they were all going out to see, Infinity War opening night. I was
it had been like 10 to 12 years by that point of Avengers movies and Marvel movies.
And the Infinity War is the follow-up to Endgame. Well, no, Infinity War
is the follow-up.
Endgame's so people were more interested in Infinity War than they, in your opinion, Ethan, before there was like the big snap, that everyone talks
Yeah,
about.
I think so.
There was more interest around that. Is it because of Thanos? Like just that iconic comic character for the Avengers with Thanos. Do you think that was where the nostalgia came from?
I think the for those guys, especially those older guys at the lumberyard, that I talked to, all of them had grown up with the Marvel comics, and they were excited to see, their childhood, nostalgic memories play out on the screen,
Right.
as they had kind of imagined it as they were reading the comics and stuff like that.
And I think, what you're saying is awesome. That's what people should be experiencing, but nobody is experiencing it for DC.
No.
I know that's what Gunn wants to do. He wants to start over. Let's consciously build a new universe, but starting with like if he's actually starting with Blue Beetle and including that in his roster.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you don't start with Superman,
you start with Batman and Superman. That's the no-brainer for the DC universe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now
it's understandable because Zack Snyder started with Superman. He started with Superman and then Batman versus Superman. And by the time we got to Justice League, of course the Joss Whedon version was, crap, but people there was a fan base for the Zack Snyder Justice League, but by the time we got there, it didn't feel like it had enough foundation.
Right.
And I know that's what James Gunn wants to do, is build the foundation before we get to something interesting, but none of this stuff looks interesting to me.
From the side, kind of sideline point of view, Marvel did it. They started out very well with the individual movies, and seeing other people kind of try to do that, they really, really rushed it in the beginning when they tried to build the universe.
100%.
And seeing someone do it again, for me, it kind of just completely turns me off, to wanting to invest in the DC universe. I just don't do it.
And here's kind of, look, everyone's talking about superhero fatigue. I don't think we're necessarily tired of superhero. I think we're tired of seeing superhero the way we've seen it over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And to be honest, James Gunn is not going to change that, okay?
Nope.
Just because he has a humorous Guardians of the Galaxy franchise success.
Or a few other interesting things.
Right. He's not going to change the format. Where are we seeing success right now? We're seeing success with the Batman, the Joker. We're going to see success with the Joker 2. We're going to see success with the Batman 2 Part 2. And honestly, it's because it's these unique directors. You got Matt Reeves with the Batman. He doesn't want to do the superhero thing. What he wants to do is tell his Batman story.
An interesting story.
They didn't want to do another Joker thing with Jared Leto and like a copy of Heath Ledger or anything. They wanted to do their own thing, right? Yeah. And that saw success, and that's why they're getting a second film. And hopefully that these part 2s live up to the first films. But that's where you're going to see success with the hero genre. It's not going to be this universe we're trying to open up, another, Marvel has theirs, DC has theirs.
Everybody's trying to open up a universe.
No,
we don't need
what
one.
we need is awesome directors telling a unique superhero film.
Yeah.
And that's it's not that we are tired of superheroes. It's that we're tired of the same kind of superheroes in the same universe.
And to wrap it back around based on that point, Black Adam failed because it was just another cog in the wheel of mediocrity. And you can quote me on that. That's an incredible line that I just made up.
We should make a short out of
cog in the wheel of mediocrity. No. But that's what it is. That's why it wasn't successful. That's why people didn't enjoy it. And because it was just another superhero movie.